Welcome, everybody, to the celebration of the 20th anniversary of the Village Movement. My name is Steve Gurney from Positive Aging Sourcebook. I'm going to be the voice from behind the curtain today, and I am pleased to welcome your co-hosts of this wonderful celebration today.
Thank you, Steve. We are so excited and welcome everyone. And thank you for joining us in such a momentous occasion. Congratulations to Beacon Hill Village and the Village Movement on their 20th anniversary. Gina?
Thanks, Barbara. Thanks, Steve. And we really are excited. I in a practice session the other day, I described this as planning a wedding, and it's been really fun to watch it all come together. But we're delighted. Congratulations to all of us, really. 20 years in the making, and today will be fun. So we have a really fun program. So let's get started. What we'd like to do is hear first from the brand new mayor of Boston, Michelle Wu.
Hi, everyone. It's Boston Mayor Michelle Wu, and I'm so thrilled to speak to the Beacon Hill Village community. On behalf of the City of Boston, let me be one of the first to say congratulations on all of your success. It's an honor to celebrate the 20th anniversary of Beacon Hill Village and the movement, which has supported older adults in successful and safe aging in their own homes and in our neighborhoods. Beacon Hill Village is a vital community resource, enabling older adults to thrive as they age with access to services, connections to other community members, social and cultural activities, and opportunities for fitness, healthy living, and education. As the first of its kind, Beacon Hill Village ultimately launched a movement which has spread across the country and the globe. There are over 300 villages open and in development. Villages give our older adults more independence and leverage community resources, as older adults can stay in their own homes and neighborhoods, which is where we know we benefit from their expertise and where we are all better off. I want to thank Beacon Hill Village for being a beacon, a staple, a resource for our older residents. Organizations like this help make our city more equitable and make sure that everyone can continue to thrive.
Wonderful. So that's really exciting to get such a wonderful message from the mayor of Boston. So now we're going to take you back to the beginning to kind of where it all started. And what I'd like to do is introduce Susan McQuinney Morris, a Beacon Hill Village founder, board of directors, really the start of everything, and Judy Willett, who was the original and the first executive director of Beacon Hill Village. So thank you both for participating, and we're excited to hear your story. So
I want to say greetings to everybody. This is a very wonderful occasion, and it's particularly wonderful to be here with Judy, who was there at the very beginning. As Judy well knows, the founding of Beacon Hill Village was really a collaborative effort, a coming together of people who really had an urgent common problem, and that was, how do we age well? At the end of the last century, the great wisdom was to move to a warm climate, to get rid of the snow and the bricks, to move to flatness, and preferably to a place where we could be taken care of. That struck me as absolutely not right. I lived in my community for 30 years. I loved it. It had everything I loved. I could not see changing that. I called a friend and said, is that crazy? And she said, no, I feel the same way. And then we said, well, let's see if other people do. We made a list of maybe 18 calls to people in the community that we thought were thought leaders, community leaders who were concerned about the community. And of those 18, 12 said, I'm not going anywhere. So we thought maybe we have something going for us. And so we began to meet. When you have a problem, you have a committee and you meet. And the first thing that we realized when we came together was that we probably had what I'm going to call 3 goals to meet. We wanted to keep, when we quote retired, we wanted to keep our minds active. We knew that we had to keep our bodies healthy, and we were concerned about our souls because we so well understood what isolation and loneliness does. All of our parents had experienced that, and we know that that was devastating. So we sat and we talked. We began meeting in December and met once a month. Initially, we invited anybody and everybody who was an authority on aging to come and speak with us. Some of the people who spoke with us were absolutely dismissive. They said we were crazy, we were irresponsible. Didn't we understand that bricks were slippery, which we found very patronizing. Anyway, we listened to them. And then we took, which was fascinating, a really serious survey of what is there in our community that makes us stay here, that enriches our lives and makes us never want to leave. And we thought practically everything we need. At that point, we began to have this concept of what we wanted to do. We decided perhaps it should be a membership organization. A membership because people could belong, they could own it, and they could participate in it. We thought we're going to be self-governing because we want to be in charge. We don't want somebody telling us how we feel. We know how we feel, and we know what we need, generally speaking. And then it occurred to us if we pooled all of our knowledge about house painters and rug cleaners and massage therapists, all of that into one place, we could then have a number we could call, one number, to answer all of our questions. And we also began to think we can use community resources. We can use churches, we can use Starbucks for our meetings. We don't need a building. We don't need to manage property. We don't need to manage a large staff. We'll use community resources. And that really got us going. We turned then next, of course, to Harvard Business School and said, we have this concept, help us build a business plan. And they came and they talked to us and they thought we were wonderful. They returned 2 months later and they said, you know, we really love you. You're just the cutest people we've seen. However, you're dreaming. Unrealistic, scale it down. No. We took one of their members and he joined our board and we created our own business plan. Meanwhile, 2 very important sources turned up. One was the doctor at Mass General Hospital who had just formed a geriatric care practice, and he thought we were fascinating. That was good. The other was the man who was the executive director of housing for low and moderate income people. And he said, you know, everybody in my buildings would have given their eye teeth to stay at home. And we thought, okay, we're hot. And he brought Judy to us. It was like a gift from Mana. And I have to turn to Judy now and ask her what she thought when she arrived at this little group of, you know, we were, I think, 55 to 80-year-olds with this pie in the sky dream. So Judy, just give us a little.
Sure. Morning, everyone, or afternoon, wherever you are. From the first moment, I was fascinated by the idea, and I also felt so lucky that you chose me. That was the bottom line. And the board had been working for about 2 years, actually. And when they hired me, they were ready to go.
Yeah.
So I was hired in October 2001. We had a launch event in January 2002. So for like 3 months, we all worked very diligently. And we had a few offerings and we held up the concept. There were about 150 people who came, as you remember, Susan, and around 65 to 70 actually joined. So it was a great start.
And then
we listened, we signed everybody up, and then we developed much more of our member structure. Excuse me.
So,
and we developed discounts to rides and massages and meals delivered, and PCPs from MGH, Mass General Hospital. And we also started member-led committees of outreach services and programs. It was a very, very exciting time.
So Judy, talk about I remember when we first opened, you called me laughing so hard you could hardly talk. The first request we got, which I think is just so typical of do you remember that? The woman who called? Yes, tell about that.
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear you, but yes, we had so much fun at the beginning and throughout all of the years that I was the founding director.
Yes. So what I was going to say, I think the first request we ever got was a woman who called from the hospital. And
yes,
you thought, oh my God, she's going to need counseling. She's going to need home care. I mean, went through your mind rapidly. What she really wanted is she'd been to the races the day before and broken her ankle and ended up in the emergency ward. And she'd been unable to pick up her betting ticket. And she's calling Judy to say, please, can you get my betting ticket from Revere? When Judy reported that to the board, some people said, we don't do that. And we said, oh, yes, we do. Anything that brings peace of mind. And that was our beginning. And it's worked ever since.
That absolutely, that was our first request. And it gave her exactly what she wanted and needed, which is what we did, which is member driven and everything and anything they wanted.
Yes.
Susan, did you want me to go on and talk
about? Go on. And
beginning? Okay. We continued for the next few years to develop the member-run structure and really listen to our members and figure out everything they wanted. Some people said, wow, you have a member-run organization that you're the director of? And I would say, yes. And it truly was. It was different than any nonprofit that I had ever worked for. And I would say that any letter that I wrote, which they usually wrote the letters, but any time I wrote it, we at least had, what, Susan, 4 or 5 people edit it. So it gave you a real sense of the integrity and the integration, and the lead were the members themselves. And I really was there and our small staff to do what our members wanted and what our board wanted. We developed book clubs and coffee clutches and political action talks. People wanted to go down to New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina, and we arranged a whole program, and they actually built houses and went down for a few weeks, all the way to programs of symphony and exercise and Red Sox. And, you all developed and run villages. So you really know, and every one of our villages these days looks so different, but this was Beacon Hill Village at the beginning. We were awarded from Boston Foundation $25,000, and we started really reaching out to all the other neighborhoods, not just Beacon Hill, Back Bay, but if you know Boston, the much more extended area. And in that, what we did from the very beginning was had a membership program for low, moderate income older people so that they could be members also. And those funds really expanded it into the West End, the South End, the North End, and many more diverse communities. People always asked, how did the Village to Village Network get launched? And that really happened. People heard about us a little bit before, but in 2004, that AARP article came out, and all of a sudden we had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of calls and emails, and people wanted to come from many other countries. And we had a consul from Japan. That was our first one. And then we had the New York Times article about the village movement and Beacon Hill Village as the example. We started, we had our first in 2005. We had our first national conference, 250 people from all over the country, and a few other countries came. And we really developed, because people needed it and wanted it, the village movement, which was helping and consulting people from around the country. And I organized, but our board went all over the country. Susan McWhinney Morse was one of the main speakers, and many other countries came to hear what we were doing. France and Australia and New Zealand and England and Japan and many, many more. It was a revolutionary idea, not only aging in place, but aging in community, membership run. And within a few years, Cambridge at Home and Capitol Hill Village all launched, and obviously many, many more villages followed. We started the Village to Village Network concept, and in around 2009, I was acting as the director of Beacon Hill Village and Village to Village Network, and the board from Beacon Hill Village was overseeing all activities of both things. At that point, it was obvious. We had written a manual, we had done a consulting, but it was a lot, and we needed to get back to Beacon Hill Village. So we connected with a wonderful organization, Capital Impact Partners. And Candace, in a few minutes, will tell you a lot more about that relationship. But in 2014, it became clear that it was time for the Village to Village Network to have its own nonprofit board. And that's when you all became members and you started running your own Village to Village Network. It was the times were challenging for our board members to start and run a village. I have to say that that was one of the things that from the beginning, it was a lot of work and a lot of insight to start Beacon Hill Village, but it was well worth it for our members and to be the founding and to be the start of all of the wonderful diversity of villages that all the people on here and some who couldn't attend really show. Susan.
Yes. So I just want to say in closing this segment, one of our board members recently collaborated with me, and we wrote a little history of Beacon Hill Village. His last line I want to read because I think it's so eloquent and it applies to all of us. Villages represent, this is a quote, villages represent as much as anything else the triumph of imagination. Their members did not merely covet a new world, they created one. And they do so now every day with every plan, meeting, service, and event that their energies conceive. I think that just puts it where it belongs. And I would like to say, when I look forward, and I think we have an enormous forward to look at, I hope that we will somehow understand how we can create villages in a more simple way. It's difficult now, it takes 2 years. I am sure if we put our heads together, we can streamline the whole process. And I hope that we reach out and establish new collaborators, new people to join us in this movement because it's very exciting. Thank you very much. And Judy, what a treat to be with you. Thank you. Over to you.
Wonderful to be with you, Susan, as always, and wonderful to be with all of you also this morning and afternoon for people. Thank you.
So,
oh, and now I would like to actually welcome Jay Livingstone, the Massachusetts State Representative from the 8th Suffolk District, which covers Boston and the Beacon Hill Village area. Jay?
State Representative for the 8th Suffolk District, which includes the West End, Beacon Hill, Back Bay, and Fenway neighborhoods. And I'm so happy to be here to celebrate with you Beacon Hill Village, which has done such great work. And I've brought this citation on behalf of the House of Representatives, which I'd like to read. Be it hereby known to all, the Massachusetts House of Representatives offers its sincerest congratulations to Beacon Hill Village in recognition of creating opportunities for older adults in Boston to live vibrant, purposeful lives, and for sparking a movement that has established 19 aging-in-place villages in Massachusetts and 300 more across the nation and globe on your 20th anniversary. The entire membership extends its very best wishes and expresses the hope for future good fortune and continued success in all endeavors. It is signed by Speaker Mariano and myself. So congratulations, Beacon Hill Village, for all you do, and thank you. Keep up the great work.
Well, that was terrific. We love all the citations and commemorations that our Boston friends and politicians have done. Great kudos. It is now my pleasure to welcome Candace Baldwin Robinson. Candace is the Director of Healthy Communities for Capital Impact Partners. I had to say Baldwin because we all know you by Baldwin. It is. But Candace is going to talk about the origins of Village to Village Network and the partnership with Capital Impact. So thank you, Candace, for coming.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you so very much. And congratulations to our friends at Beacon Hill Village for this momentous milestone. 20 years of leadership is amazing. You have truly been a catalyst for many of our communities, and we're delighted to be part of this celebration. Likewise, congratulations to the Village Village Network. You all have a place in my heart, and all the members of the network for reaching your anniversary and this celebration. For those of us who are privileged, like Judy and others, to be part of the beginning of the network, it's truly amazing to see all that has been created and accomplished. And good afternoon to all of you who are attending. As Barbara said, my name is Candace Robinson. Some of you may know me as Candace Baldwin. It's been a while. I did get married in the process, and I serve as the Director of Healthy Communities for Capital Impact Partners. For those of you new to the Village Network, we may be wondering why a national CDFI, a community development financial institution, is presenting on this celebration today. So Capital Impact Partners, we are a national nonprofit community development financial institution. We bring both capital and capacity to organizations and communities to really build communities of opportunities. We first connected with the Village movement through our partners in Lincoln, Nebraska. At that time, our organization had been working for over 10 years to replicate models of community-based care for dignified and inclusive aging, replicating the models such as the affordable assisted living and the greenhouse model of skilled nursing. At that time, in 2006-07, Tabitha Health Services was a borrower, and they were building a new greenhouse model, and they had heard about the Village movement and wanted to engage our assistance to help with the community members in Lincoln to develop the Village there. As a nonprofit community development financial institution, it is our mission to help build communities of opportunities where every member is able to thrive. In 2008, just to kind of put a context on the history, the Home and Community-Based Service waivered services, which now you all may know, were pushing more long-term care into the communities. The crash of the housing market at that time also impacted the ability of a lot of individuals to sell their homes and move to where they wanted to be. And so at this time, we were required to, communities were really required to reimagine what local integrated long-term care delivery could look like. Age-friendly communities were being created and coming online. And so this is where Capital Impact was really spurred to figure out, how could we play a role, and what could we do to support this growth. Coupled with our roots in cooperative development, we too were drawn, much like all of you, to the collective action by the communities to address a growing concern. And we also wanted to build upon our expertise in taking replicable models to scale. As I think about the specifics about the inception of the network, it's about like detailing my first date with my husband. Who said who? Who met who called who said what made the difference? What was the impetus? Much of this still remains a mystery, and I'm sure many of us can argue about when was the first decision. But from meeting notes that I could find, we can discern that we too saw the infamous New York Times article, and we wanted to be a catalyst to help the Village Network grow. We met in 2008, members from Tabitha Healthcare, members of Beacon Hill Village, I believe Capitol Hill Village, also Gail might have to remind me on that history, and Capital Impact Partners began to meet and discuss the village model and its importance to our growing communities of care, and also what would take to replicate the model nationally. Between 2009, 2011, as Judy said, we created the nonprofit organization that you see today. With 2 members, Beacon Hill Village and Capital Impact Partners. To create the organization that we have, we also shared staff. As Judy stated, she served as a co-director as well as continued to serve as the executive director for Capital Village. I also was a co-director for the National Village Network within Capital Impact Partners, and we brought on Rita Kostiak to our CIP team, and later Natalie Galusha. The 4 of us, I think, had really amazing memories, and still trying not to cry today for those. We brought back, Capital Impact Partners brought its full force of a national organization, bringing its back office, marketing communications team, fundraising skills, and infrastructure to build the Village Network and its peer-to-peer network as you have today. At the same time, leveraging our healthcare partnerships in California and funding from the Archstone Foundation, we were also able to work with the growing field of California villages. This work created a number of the tools and resources still used by villages today in their startup and expansion. And it's great to see that this cooperation for learning and sharing across network members still continues today to ensure all villages are strengthened as part of the national movement. As Julie said, while Capital Impact Partner departed as members from the network in 2014, we have always been and will continue to be proud of being a part of this wonderful network. Our departure was really due to our board's decision to come back to our mission to serve low-income communities and the realization that the network could not thrive under the strain of our overhead costs. Likewise, the leadership of the network had transitioned through the advisory council into its leadership today, and you really didn't need us anymore. The villages and the community members who volunteer today and always, you fill gaps in the long-term care delivery systems that are the connective tissue, as well as go-to experts on the authentic experience of aging in the community. The Village movement continues to thrive today, thanks to your continued leadership. Capital Impact Partners is proud to have been part of your journey, and we continue to support innovative community-based models of care delivery and communities of opportunities. Congratulations to you all, and thank you so much for the opportunity to share in this celebration. And I believe I'm going to send it back to Gina with a message on a special proclamation. So thanks so very much.
Thank you, Candace. Looking at all the chat in the chat box, I think everybody's delighted by hearing all the history. So thank you so much for doing that. I do have a special reading, and I'm going to hold up this thing just for a second because it's really heavy. But this is what we received. It's congressional. It is a congratulatory statement from Congressman Stephen Lynch, and I'm going to read it in a second. Was entered into the congressional record on February 2nd. And he can't be here to read it today, which is too bad, but this is part of the official record. I'm going to read it out loud. It's really a wonderful message. So if you'll bear with me, this is the message from the House of Representatives. And this was from February 2nd. So this is the congressman speaking. Madam Speaker, I rise today to commemorate the 20th anniversary of Beacon Hill Village in Boston. It's an anniversary with significance for the whole nation, and they are to be congratulated on reaching this special milestone. Madam Speaker, Beacon Hill Village was created by and for neighbors, determined to continue to thrive and grow in the neighborhood they love. There was no ready model when they began. A core goal of Beacon Hill Village members was living active, independent, and healthy lives. There is not much choice about growing old, but there are choices about where and how to do so. The village offers those choices to its members and so much more, including maintaining and enhancing quality of life, providing peace of mind, enabling purposeful lives, and helping to navigate the transitions of growing older. From its start in 2002, Beacon Hill Village has spawned a movement that continues to spread across the US and in other countries. Today, there are over, and you'll notice these numbers are all slightly vary. 263 open and 70 developing villages, serving thousands of older adults from major cities to small rural communities. And they are across the nation in 43 states in the District of Columbia and in 4 countries abroad. While many villages were formed through grassroots efforts led by a few passionate people, villages have also grown from faith-based groups, social service partnerships, and through existing community service organizations. And just as a sneak peek, you're going to hear from just a couple of those organizations in a little bit. Beacon Hill Village was the chief force behind the creation of Village to Village Network, which remains dedicated to helping communities everywhere design their own villages, reflecting local needs and using local resources. Local villages connect members to a full range of practical support services to help with non-medical household tasks, programs, and transportation. Villages also promote staying active by coordinating recreational, social, educational, and cultural programs. These social activities minimize isolation and promote interaction among their peers. Madam Speaker, I am convinced that the best days of Beacon Hill Village, the Village to Village Network, and villages on the nation are still ahead of them. Their message is simple, forceful, and optimistic. Aging should be individual and person-centered. Villages can help their members take responsibility for their own aging and make choices, resulting in vibrant, purposeful lives lived on their own terms in their own homes and communities. With this message, villages are changing how elders experience aging and how our society perceives aging. Every American benefits from these changes. This community-based movement offers an economically efficient model. The COVID-19 pandemic has shined a bright light on the power of villages to deliver essential services, keep members engaged and connected safely, and provide critical information during a time of stress and confusion. Seemingly overnight, villages turned in-person events and activities into virtual programming, trained their members to use Zoom, and partnered with existing services and resources to ensure members had what they needed, especially during lockdown. Not only did villages and their members thrive during the pandemic, they demonstrated the power of community. By 2030, every baby boomer will be age 65 or older, which means that 1 out of every 5 US citizens will be of retirement age. The numbers are even larger around the world. The village model and the importance of community and choice offer valuable insights and solutions for this challenging phenomena. Madam Speaker, in recognition of the positive impact that the village movement has had on the experience of aging, I ask that my colleagues join me in congratulating Beacon Hill Village on its 20th anniversary and saluting all villages throughout the nation. There you go. Thank you, Congressman Lynch. Wish you could be here, but we are so grateful to have this in the congressional record. Yay.
Yay. Thank you, Gina. And now I'm very proud to introduce Mark Friedman, a special friend of the Village Movement and a truly honored guest.
Hi, my name is Mark Friedman. I'm the founder and CEO of Encore.org and a longtime admirer of the remarkable work of the Village Movement. So I am honored and grateful to be able to offer congratulations at this important 20-year milestone. When I had the chance to talk to the villages a few years ago, I recounted the story of Lewis Mumford, one of America's greatest urban historians, who in 1956 wrote an essay in Architectural Digest with the title "For Older People, Integration, Not Segregation." And I think he might have had the villages in mind when he wrote those words, because the work that you all have been doing has done so much to advance the integration of older people, the opportunity to remain a vibrant part of communities, to live lives that are more purposeful and interdependent. And so for all of those reasons, I think when historians look back 50 years, 100 years from now and think of what were the markers of the improvement of longer lives, they'll go back and look at Social Security and Medicare, certainly highlight those things, the hospice movement, lifelong learning. But I think at the top of the list will be the work of the Village movement in the first 20 years and in the many decades to follow. So thank you so much for the chance to be part of this movement, and I hope one day to be living in a village myself. Thank you.
That was wonderful. Thank you, Mark. Thank you for all your support of the villages and a wonderful message for our celebration of the 20th anniversary. We now are going to turn this part of the program to highlight some of our villages and the 20 years of growth and how a community's idea for aging turned into a revolutionary model that has replicated across our country. I am pleased to present a smattering of our villages. And first up is Darcy Evans with Chicago Village. Thanks, Darcy.
Thank you, Barbara. Hello, everyone. I am Darcy Evans, head of the Village Chicago. First off, congratulations to Beacon Hill Village on their 20th anniversary and for starting this wonderful movement. The Village Chicago was conceived in 2007 when several families were inspired by the New York Times article about Beacon Hill Village and a growing village movement across the United States. They purchased Beacon Hill's handbook on how to start a village, and they went to work. After raising funds and hiring Diane Campbell as the founding executive director, the team recruited a board of directors and an enthusiastic base of members. The Village Chicago opened its doors on June 1st, 2009. The Village Chicago thrived almost from the very beginning. Our staying power came from extensive outreach, a culture of inclusiveness, diversity, sharing, and compassion. Our founders made sure that we had the structure and the will to respond to a changing world and our community's changing needs. We developed a member survey coupled with extensive ongoing feedback to gauge current and evolving needs of the Village Chicago community and develop new initiatives in response. Identifying and collaborating with community partners helped us deliver exceptional programs. Over the last several years, we realized a rapidly emerging need for more programming on health and wellness and special programs for brain health and memory loss. We secured special funding in 2019, and now we have important and unique programs that serve the village community. We focus on alleviating isolation and loneliness, exercise and nutrition, early stage memory loss, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's disease, and mental health. The pandemic caused us to develop new technologies and new ways to connect with members, which strengthened the village in many important and unforeseen ways. Our volunteerism and engagement with members, their families, and the broader community are stronger than ever. We also focus on growing our intergenerational community. Recent initiatives include our Bridging Generations Board of Young Professionals, our Ageless Innovators Program, which is a co-mentoring program in which participants are paired, an older with a younger. Now in its 4th year, this program fosters intergenerational collaboration in the workplace and provides a relevant activity for nearly 27% of our members who are working or want to work. And for all participants, it contributes to a sense of purpose. New programs coming this year include Friend Finder, an interactive member directory, new health and wellness programs, and a Turn the Page on Age, Reframing Aging campaign in partnership with Chicago Innovation. Thank you. And congratulations again to Beacon Village. Now let's hear from Andy Gaines from Ashby Village.
Hello all. Let's see, I'm just looking here. I'm grateful to be here and to have this opportunity to share with you my love affair with Ashby Village, the Village movement, and the determination for each of us to embrace life transition as a natural and blessed part of it all. In 2007, Pat Sussman and Shirley Haberfeld, both wrestling to support aging parents in other states, read the seminal New York Times article, and committed themselves to creating something different. 3 years later, I attended a living room chat announcing the forthcoming launch of Ashby Village. Inspired by the vision and captivated by the knowledge, skill, accomplishment, and determination of their leaders, I became their first executive director. So for the next 11 years, we built Ashby Village together, a dynamic and vital village noted for its community engagement and initiative. With over 400 members, 550 volunteers, and 5 FTE staff, Ashby Village has provided a robust array of programs and services. In addition to its robust array of programs, its accomplishment includes hosting a quarterly arts and culture series featuring noted speakers from our unique wealth of talented members, volunteers, and their connections, such as Robert Reich, Adam and Arlie Hochschild, and more. Building an elder action group that is actively advocating for climate justice, economic, racial, and age equity on the state and local levels. Spearheading a collaborative public and nonprofit effort to establish Berkeley as an age-friendly city. In partnership with San Francisco Village, envisioning, planning, and launching Village Movement California. Through these efforts, villages have been recognized in the California Master Plan on Aging, which expressly calls for promoting and adopting the village model for older adult volunteerism and services. And most recently, Ashby Village has designed and secured funding for a robust diversity, equity, and inclusion initiative, providing training, awareness raising, strategy development, and action that are ongoing and integrated throughout every part of the village. So now I come to the love affair. 6 years into my leadership, my wife was diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer. We were raising 2 kids, then 4 and 6, and the prospect of running an increasingly large and complex village was daunting. The leadership of Ashby Village, however, was clear, unerring, and 100% committed to supporting the primacy of my family commitments. They stood by me as family for the next 5 years, providing me with backup, support, rooting me on, feeling with and for me as we went through this challenging yet deeply meaningful period. Last summer, with my wife's cancer progressing, it was clear that it was time to shift course. I'd like to thank Board President Andrew Lichtenstein for concurring with me that it was time for my resignation and helping to ensure a seamless transition. At a community-wide farewell, we celebrated together the cherished village we had created. I felt that I had fully accomplished my mission. And so I raise my glass today in gratitude to Ashby Village, to the Village Movement, and to each of you for choosing to love each day of our lives to its fullest. Thank you for being with me in this chapter of my life. Ashby Village is currently seeking a new executive director to carry it forward into its 2nd decade. So if you know someone, if you're ready and wanting and willing to take on this extraordinary village, check out our website to find out more. So thank you. And I'd like to now welcome Lynn Trainer, Executive Director of Villages Northwest, to speak about their hub and spoke model.
Thank you, Andy. I'm very happy to be here today, and congratulations to Beacon Hill Village. Villages Northwest began in 2011, and we are the Village Movement really began due to our founder, Ann Andler, who came from San Francisco and wanted to bring the Village Movement to Portland. She started a village, she reached out to people, and soon she had a whole cluster of villages or potential villages that wanted to form in the Portland area. We've grown from that time from one village. We opened our very first village in October of 2015. In October 2021, we opened our 10th village, and we have one more village that is forming on the Oregon coast. We really like to think of the hub and spoke model as the foundation on which the villages operate. And we came together because we felt that we could do a better job of brand identity across our metropolitan area, which is about 2.5 million people, including Clark County, Washington. If you do the next slide, Steve, please. So this is our metropolitan area, and you can see where our 11 villages are. We still have some gaps, but we have done a pretty good job of covering the metro area. Next slide. We like the fact that we have a consistent brand. When I first got involved with the villages in 2015, people they didn't know about it. If you talked about it, they looked at you like a deer in the headlights. About a year later, you'd be talking about the villages and they're like, isn't that something they do on the East Coast? And we're like, yes, exactly. About a year later, when we'd start to talk to people about the villages, they'd go, I think I have a friend in the northeast part of town. Is this the same thing? And we could say yes. The hub and spoke really allows us to share resources, share experiences, and provide support so the village leaders can really focus on their members, their volunteers, their programming, and their services. We have grown to about 670 members across our 10 open villages. We have about 600 volunteers, half of whom are members. And we have about 140 volunteers on our leaders list, which means those people either serve on their governing councils or they have a role in their village where they stay in touch and they're actively involved. Some of the things that the hub does that's really important is we do administrative support, we do accounting, we share insurance. If each village had to get their own insurance, it would cost a lot more. We do tax filings, we do the annual fundraising appeal, we work with HR, we help with shared policies and procedures, and we have a group of delegates from each village that come together on a monthly basis to work on shared planning for sustainability and growth, for policies and procedures. We also have about 10 affinity groups, which are representatives from each of our villages who are doing membership or volunteers or fundraising. They come together mostly on a monthly basis to talk and share experiences and provide support and mentor new leaders that are coming into those activities. So we are really excited with what we've done so far. We're really excited to grow, and we're really happy to be part of the village movement. So I thank you for letting us be here today and talk a little bit about what we do, and I would like to pass back to Gina.
Thank you so much, Lynn. It's very interesting just hearing about what you've done. I think Judy Willett mentioned that in everybody's interest to learn how to put a village together, we created a manual and also a supplement. And there's a line in there, if you've seen one village, you've seen one village. And I think what you're hearing from the variety of villages is after the Beacon Hill Village model, they really did change and morph, and hearing about hub and spoke is fabulous, because that's so different than obviously how we are here in Boston and all the different versions that you're going to hear. They took on, and here I am, I turned off my video, didn't I? Each of the villages took on the local resources, the needs, the interests of the members. So that was terrific. So we have a wonderful advisory committee here at Beacon Hill Village. And one member of that advisory committee is Dr. Christine Ritchie, that we're going to hear from in a second. Dr. Ritchie is a board certified geriatrician and palliative care physician. She's also the director of the Center of Aging and Serious Illness at Mass General Hospital here in Boston. So she was delighted to be part of today. So Steve, if we can hear from Dr. Ritchie.
Congratulations to Beacon Hill Village for its 20th anniversary. It's had such an incredible impact, not only here in Boston, but throughout the country and throughout the world. Beacon Hill's village vision for community and connection that started right here in Beacon Hill has now taken off over the past 20 years to villages and the village to village movement in multitudes of cities in the United States and across the world. I got to see this in San Francisco, and I'm so proud to know that this movement, which has had such an impact on multitudes of older adults, started right here. So my heartiest and heartfelt congratulations to Beacon Hill Village for its vision, for its impact, not only what it's done to date, but also what it's going to do in the years to come.
Terrific. Thank you, Dr. Ritchie. So we'd now like to bring Heidi Ware. She's one of our newest villages here in Massachusetts, up in Swampscott, Mass. So Heidi, take it away.
Thank you, Gina. And congratulations, Gina, to Beacon Hill Village for your 20th anniversary. Welcome to Sea Glass Village. If you wouldn't mind sharing the screen with the slides. Thanks, Steve. So we are located on Boston's beautiful North Shore, and Beacon Village was completely designed and constructed under the shadow of COVID. Joyfully, we celebrated despite COVID, and we began providing services 2 months ago in December. We now boast over 72 members, 40 volunteers, and a half a paid executive director. Let me back up a minute because we did some valuable background work. Next slide, please. Swampscott, one of the Sea Glass Village's 3 towns, launched an age-friendly initiative with an extensive needs assessment in 2019. This study was funded by town dollars, resulting in solid town support. The study included 2 community forums, a mail-in survey, focus groups, and extensive interviews, and it documented and validated our local needs. The recommendations that resulted from that study included investigating the village concept. And so let the games begin. Next slide, please. Dick Elkin from the V2V network zoomed into our meeting in early February 2020. It was an age-friendly meeting, and at that time we were investigating what a village might look like for Swampscott. Today, the village tops monthly agendas for the age-friendly meetings, and it is included in Swampscott's action plan. Meanwhile, a separate nonprofit called Sea Glass Village began to form. We broadened our geographical scope to include neighboring towns of Marblehead and Hunt to increase our population base. People were curious, the newspapers were kind, and energy grew. We built the village on Zoom. All board and committee meetings were on Zoom. All outreach was done via Zoom. Next slide, please. This past summer, the board finally got to meet in person. I had no idea Izzy was as tall as she is. And so we finally had time, and you can see by the rainbow behind us, we thought it was a pretty clear message that things were going well. This is our board of directors. Next slide, please. Yet so many of our seniors didn't use computers, and we presented in parking lots and we presented in parks. Some of our members are still reluctant to have home visits, and creating bonds between our people is slow. Next slide, please. But thank goodness, oh, one of the slides went sideways, sorry. Thank goodness for the events team, because they just want to have fun. Everyone craves getting together safely. And so bring a chair and a blanket and a beverage and come down to the beach and and have some s'mores with us. Next slide, please. We hosted our opening gala outside just before the winter's cold, and now we are ready to serve. The best advice I heard from the Village to Village network is have fun, and so we work hard at it. Thank you. And now we will hear from Evie Horton.
Hi there, this is Evie Horton. I'm coming to you from Vashon Island in Puget Sound in Washington State. Just a little bit about, I don't have any slides, but this is also inspiring. Let's see. We're on Vashon Island in Puget Sound in Washington State. We are actually in unincorporated King County. And while King County is the 12th most populous county in the United States, we're in a very rural setting. The island is accessible only by public transportation, namely the Washington State ferries. Vashon Villages is a program of the Vashon Senior Center. Our model is a parent plus paid staff, at least for now, in the shape of yours truly. Vashon Villages is a pilot program that's funded by King County's Veterans, Seniors, and Human Services Levy. When that levy passed 5 years ago, there were several funding opportunities that were created, including for so-called senior villages. Our executive director wrote a grant proposal and it was accepted a few weeks before the onset of COVID-19. And would you believe it? The Vashon Villages programming is launching later today. We're going to be riding some pretty serious coattails. Congratulations to Beacon Hill Village. And we hope we're creating some coattails of our own, perhaps even looking forward to a 20th anniversary projected down the road for 2042. One of the most challenging aspects of launching our villages, I once heard a wise woman say, get more people, and I want to thank Barbara Sullivan for that. From my perspective, it has been challenging. Maybe this echoes a little bit of what Heidi touched on, organizing people during a pandemic for something that's new and meant to be long-term as opposed to a program that's more short-term and focused on essential needs, which is a lot of the good work that the Senior Center itself is doing. I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that the investment from the funder, King County, has been a really important factor in this work. Our startup position has not been challenged by a lack of funds. And so I think the most important factor in enrolling community support for the success of this pilot program, so it gets rooted and sticks, is the reputation of the Senior Center, which is the de facto organization focused on serving older adults here on Vashon and Maury Island. The Senior Center is a trusted and cherished place that welcomes everyone. And along with this, the success of the Vashon Villages will certainly depend on, of course, the involvement of individuals who come together in the spirit of interdependence and all the good community-based goodwill and village loving that's going on and riding the high of this village buzz. That all seems like a very good fit. So thanks for your time this morning and for the invitation to be here. And next we welcome Kathy Pointer.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for inviting us to be a part of this celebration. Congratulations to the Beacon Hill Village. My name is Kathy Pointer, again, the director of the Kingdom Care Senior Village. We responded in terms of our start, we responded to an RFP from the then DC Office on Aging to start a village in Ward 8, a community of color in Washington, DC, east of the Anacostia River. My background had been with the contractor for the federal government, so very accustomed to writing grant applications and proposals and responding to RFPs and that kind of thing. So we were already doing work as a faith-based organization of a church. We were already providing activities for our seniors, getting them together, doing various things with them. So I thought that the work really aligned. I had never heard of the village concept before, did not know anything about it. But I did think that when I read the RFP, that what we were doing aligned with the village concept. So I decided to write the proposal and we were awarded the grant. The proposal about 3 months in the working before we got that in and about 2 months before funding. And we actually had to open pretty quickly. So we had about 4 months to really get started. We're very, very grateful for a lot of support from I think it was 11 DC Village EDs, Dale Cohen, Barbara Sullivan, all the EDs really helped and supported our growth. And we're very appreciative of that. The model really, really works in communities of color. Churches are very vital and centered in the lives of the community. Most live in the vicinity often of their church, and they already have connections with pastors and other congregants and parishioners. So the model in the African-American community can really, really work. And evident of that, we are thankful and grateful to the DCEDs again, along with the DC Office on Aging, now is the DC Department of Aging and Community Living, who has allowed us to do a pilot project that we're calling Age in Place DC. And that project is focused on senior service awareness, access, and support. It's a pilot project aimed and geared at diversity and really reaching communities of color. We met with about, I guess, 30 churches or so. We identified 8, and we're using an ambassador approach to be able to identify someone in each of those congregations. And their responsibility is to reach out to the seniors, not just in their churches, but in their communities. And we're providing, gave them a list of village-like services. We actually entered into a formal MOU. We talked to the senior leadership of those churches, and it is really off to a great start. Our first month of reporting was actually January, and I'm ecstatic about the reporting that has come in to show that we can reach community of color. And yes, the services can be utilized and needed. And as we've heard already, we are just, every village is different, and you meet the needs of those in your community, and we've been able to do that. We have a lot of food insecurity in our community, and that's what we've been focused on, along with also providing all the other things that seniors need that just to enjoy relationships. And certainly during COVID, it's been great to connect our seniors and keep them together. So again, thank you so very much for the opportunity to share this afternoon. I am just really pleased to be a part of the celebration.
Well, Kathy and everyone, Evie, Lynn, Darcy, Andy, we couldn't have represented a great representation of villages throughout the United States. And now we're going to hear from another village. I'd like to welcome and introduce Gail Cohen, who I don't really think needs an introduction. She is currently the DC age-friendly coordinator, but she was the first and founding executive director of Capitol Hill Village. So Gail, without further ado.
Barbara, what a pleasure to be here for this program. It has been a walk through what has been an absolutely wonderful transition from where I was before I came into the village world, which was in an age-segregated continuing care retirement community, into the world of where people want to be, as opposed to the 5% who choose to be in institutional placements. Wonderful as they are, people really, really prefer to stay home. So Steve, would you bring up the slides? I was the founding executive director of Capitol Hill Village, and I went to the Beacon Hill Village 2007 conference in Boston, and I just was convinced that this was exactly how to demonstrate that we could in fact make a success out of staying at home throughout life. I was there a long time, enjoying with the many, many people who made it possible for us to celebrate Volunteer First, which was for us easy because there were so many people interested in being a part of what it is that makes Capitol Hill Village so special. When I left Capitol Hill Village in 2013 and joined the mayor's office, I was absolutely convinced that age-friendly, the movement started by the World Health Organization, was villages on steroids. In my mind, it was the next big thing that would pull us together across the entire community. Go to the next slide. Just want to go back and thank Beacon Hill Village for inspiring so many in the Boston area and so many of us across the country. It was, as we've all said, the beginning of a new era in terms of how we thought about living at home. Next slide. And Beacon Village to Village Network, we were there and saw it happening and were delighted that Village to Village Network was created when it was. It was a real pleasure. Now, go ahead, Steve, to the next slide. Our mayor declared today in DC a very special day. And while it would be, I think, probably redundant to read this particular proclamation, the mayor gets it. And you'll see as you look through her various whereas paragraphs, what she sees that you all see that is so special about the village communities. She understands that this is a model that can be so much more cost effective and beneficial. And I would like to go to the next slide, talk to you about next steps. In my mind, it's time to turn the we've seen one village, and that means we've seen one village, into what we have so much in common, because we do. There is a great deal that goes on within villages that are important. And we do, in my mind and in many minds, contribute to longevity and well-being. We need more funding sources, and we need to be joined by scores more in every village. Go to the next slide. How many times have we said these phrases? Village participants live longer, better. When the going gets rough, villages can usually smooth the way back home. Adult children can be confident that giving village membership to a parent is the way to achieve living at home safely and engaged. Villages can save long-term care expenses for our healthcare system and village members. We say these things, but we need research studies using village data to be convincing. And this is really the message that I'm hoping to deliver to you. We have an appetite for sharing, as you know. The Village Network in 2021 featured a session with the now Capitol Hill Village wonderful executive director, Judy Berman, and Manuel Acevedo with Helpful Village, that 64 villages already store and report their village information using the same service and activity categories. This can be done by any and all of the villages. Those data, de-identified, create thousands of life experiences that we can share with the sources of funds that we're interested in inspiring. Those villages that are already involved cross 19 states and are committed to seeing research being done. Next slide. On behalf of all of us who believe engagement and purpose is the elixir of life, and I'll say it again, engagement and purpose, thank you to Beacon Hill Village for leading the way. Appreciation to the Village to Village Network for supporting villages in their development. And let's take the next steps together. Village data must be safely shared and de-identified so that we can create sustainable villages that last past our lifetimes. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here and share with you. Barbara?
I'm coming on. I couldn't find my button. Thank you, Gail. And, you know, if you are interested in further developments with the data, we do have several of our board members along with Capitol Hill Village working together in a coordinated effort. So email us at V2V and we'll add you to the list. Now I am very happy to, Steve, can you pull up that slideshow? We're going to have a little bit of fun right now. And it's your turn to participate and have a little bit of an interactive voice or just we're going to ask you to put some comments in the chat. So, and it's going to be fast. We'll give a minute to each of the questions. So the goal is, well, I'll tell you the goal at the end. So next slide, Steve. So we're going to ask you questions and we'll ask you to answer in our chat room. Next slide. One word. On your mark, get set, go. One word that represents your village journey. Okay. So the next slide. What word, one word, describes your village during the pandemic? I love the responses. I love Zoom. This is going to be great. Okay. So last question. What one word to describe the future of the village movement? I love it. I love it. Thank you all for participating in this. This is what I'm going to do. So I played around. I don't know if you've ever heard of the word clouds, but this is a word cloud. And I took all the villages within the network and I loaded it into the word cloud to see, and we have 380 villages, I think I loaded into the word cloud. And this is what it came up with, which I thought, we have something, a common theme. You see community, you see village, you see, connections, you see neighborhood or neighbors. We are going to do this with those 3 questions and we will send it out, after, give us a couple days, please. We have to regroup. But Steve, you can stop the slide. And there's our village map. You can see us across, the country. So thank you for participating in that. It was kind of fun. I am going to open it up to Gina.
Barbara, that was fun. Really exciting to see the speed with which everybody just put in their thoughts. I mean, about where we are today, where we're going. That was fabulous. But Jen here in my office noticed that the first word when describing your village, somebody wrote COVID. So between COVID and Zoom, that's where we've lived for the past 3 years. But this has been just an amazing program. I wanted, as a little public service announcement, people have asked about, can we get a copy of the proclamation? And I use the word handbook, and where does the handbook live? And what about any of the things that were read today? So we have created a 20th anniversary page where we put together all this stuff. We'll have a copy of the link to today's presentation, and you can, if you want to print out any of those proclamations for yourself, you could print them out and stuff. So we'll be providing copies of that. And I know Steve Roop, Steve was one of the early founders along with Susan, and Susan quoted him in her piece, and Steve put a link in the chat to our newsletter, which didn't work, but don't fear. We send out all the materials. We'll put a link to the PDF for the December newsletter so that you could see that article. But Barbara, do you want to take any questions?
I think we have about 10 minutes to take questions if you want to do that. I don't know how you want to handle it. You want to do it in the Q&A? Do you want to have a raised hand?
Maybe just there was just I don't know if anybody has any questions for the speakers, but if you want to put it in the chat box and then we'll see. I'm not sure quite how this is going to work, but we just saw so many wonderful examples of how the village movement has evolved. I didn't know if anybody wished they could hear more, but Kathy, you're definitely a star because I saw so many wonderful accolades for what you're doing with Kingdom Care. And I think I just love the title. What a fabulous village. Kathy, that's awesome. But, and Heidi, opening up a village in the middle of pandemic. God bless you.
And we also have our first Hispanic village down in Orlando, and she unfortunately couldn't be with us today. She was going to be one of our speakers, but she promised to come on again, Anna, with Pueblos. So it's great examples of how we are trying to include communities across the country and areas that are underreached. We don't like to say underserved, underreached. We really are, we need to find the rural and I'm excited because we have 5 new network, 5 states that we've never, haven't been in. So they're opportunity members, they're developing, and we're excited because they're in rural. We have one in Utah that's an hour from their local grocery store. So we're working with, very underreached populations. So we do have some,
somebody asked about getting a list of hub and spoke models. Is that something that's on your website?
We do. We have 11 examples of hub and spoke models. Obviously, Villages Northwest is our largest, but we have hub and spoke models that are statewide, like Village Commons in Rhode Island. I know that we have countywide, like Arlington neighborhood. So we'd be happy to, provide a list of the village models.
So Steve is asking about how do we diversify in the center of the country? He said the map that Barbara put up is so coastal focused. Do any of our speakers want to turn their video back on and provide their thoughts on how we can help diversify the movement?
While you're waiting for some speakers to respond to the geographic diversification, Barry Pendergrass said it seems to be a movement that is very female driven. Where are the men in this incredible success? Maybe some folks could anecdotally answer that question.
That's a good point. How do we inspire more of our community members to become engaged? And it really is, we've said it before, villages organically grow, but how do we, and Steve made a point about how do we get the government to start acknowledging? We have had some conversations with the administration on community living, and we're very excited that the network had gotten a grant from Next 50, and we are working on a guidebook, how to work with your area agencies on aging, or your aging offices. State by state, they are called different things, but we're engaging several of our villages to help us write this guidebook, which I find it exciting because that may be the way to get into the underreached communities.
I was going to say the questions are coming through fast and furious, and I think I'll read a few of these. And what's interesting is to see the solutions being dropped into chat, or the answers being dropped into chat. But we certainly have panel members that might want to comment. Mary Jo Deering says, it seems that for sustainability, there may be more collaboration across villages with shared back-end functions as well as joint programming. Do you see this coming? Folks might want to comment on that. This is an interesting one that Don brings up. When can we look forward to the next in-person Village to Village National Conference?
I love that. And I'd be happy to answer it. This year, we are going to be doing a virtual. We have many of our villages that are still hesitant about in-person. And I think if we didn't have this last round of COVID with Omicron, I think we would have possibly been in person, but we're not out of the woods yet. And I think people are not comfortable being in person. So it's a good and a bad scenario. We love being in person, but the reality is most of our villages, and I came from one of them, we could only send one person. Whereas the virtual, I was getting 10 people from a village. More people were able to jump in and participate. So, it's a bittersweet type of thing, but we do want to eventually go back into person and be happy to have your thoughts and get back to us about how we open that door again.
This is Gail Cohn. Can I comment on that, Barbara?
Yeah, please, Gail.
I would just note the following. Don't ever not have a virtual option. Every conference and every meeting needs to have both in-person opportunities and virtual options. That then makes it inclusive for those who can't make it or are so busy that they can just fit in the time to come to the meeting, and that's about it, not the travel that's involved. So I really hope we keep that squarely in our minds as we get excited about getting together.
Well, a lot of the chatter, Gail, I'm glad you brought that up. And believe it or not, Peter Engstrom's on this call. I just had a conversation, a lot of chatter about hybrid. And so I think that's the wave we'll start, and we're starting to look at it. A lot of, in our forums, people talking about it. And so that could be, I think that's the wave of our future, honestly.
Tracy Rodriguez Biggs says, could villages and more diverse communities come together for a shared conversation?
I would love that, and get in touch with me and I'd be happy to host it. So that'd be great. Great opportunity. These are the conversations that we have going forward, and what we need is much needed.
We have a village that is being considered in DC with LGBTQ. I'm sure they're going to stay members with villages, but this group would like to get together with themselves as well.
Terrific. Thank you. Other questions?
Okay, I think my queue is been completed.
Okay.
But great comments in chat. This is probably one of the more engaging chat dialogues that I've seen on a online event.
Oh, Steve, one of the areas that I did read through this about the men participation. I'm going to tell you, we've known, sorry guys that are on here, men were not joiners, and so women tend to be, they had their groups, their book clubs, this and that. But at Mount Vernon at Home, we had a men's club. We had a group of men that would just have like a cup of coffee and like Panera, or we had a group of men who volunteered to help some of the other members who had, cognitive decline. And so they had a men's club, and they would do, they'd show an Army film, and they not only did they participate, but they were engaging other men, which was awesome. So there's lots of variations out there. And I see some in the chatter. It's a great way to encourage some of your male members to step up and do more. Oh, I love the cooking club. Gina, anything?
Yeah, you know, we have a men's first drink the first Thursday. That was always in person, a men's walking group. And it's funny, I'm thinking about that because we've had a couple discussions. I mean, if we look at our demographics, we're definitely 2/3 women, 1/3 men, you know, and I don't know that we're doing, other than those specific groups, anything specific, but we really try to have a broad range of programs, you know, that would appeal to both men and women. And you know, when we can get back in person and do our brewery tours, there's so many things in Boston to do. So I think that when we think about going forward, and we're asking the same questions everybody is with regard to, we just had a board meeting this morning talking about how do you make that decision to when we're getting more in person and what are the guidelines, and knowing that we've got members all across the spectrum still really concerned, others ready to roll. And we're just thinking about creating a balance and, you know, both listening to the city and city guidelines, and then looking at our members and trying to create things hopefully in the spring and going forward where those people that are comfortable to get together in person, let's start create some programs. But it is kind of a balance. I want to answer the easiest question in the chat box. Somebody said how many people were on Zoom, and I think at the peak we had about 355, which is really delightful to have so much participation.
But it's been awesome. And Travis actually did point out that we had people coming and going too. So I think we will wrap it up at this point. And I just want to thank you all for coming and helping us mark a milestone anniversary. I want to thank everybody who participated in the program today. Happy 20th anniversary, Beacon Hill Village. And thank you for leading the way. And more importantly, thank you to all of you who are the trailblazers and the visionaries that has made this movement possible. Cheers to the next decade.
Yay. So Barbara must have called me up about 9 months ago and said that she wanted to do this day. I tell you, when I walked in the office today, I couldn't believe it's finally February 15th, 2022. So thank you, Barbara, for launching this. And thank you, everybody, for participating. Steve, the guy behind the curtain, for doing all our Zoom. Thank you, Steve, and pulling this off. This was fun. And we'll share everything from today. Thank you to all our speakers for just sharing your stories. This was wonderful. And yes, let's, you know, here's to, if anybody has anything, let's toast to the next 20.
Cheers.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.
Bye. Cheers.
Bye now. Cheers.